by the Albanian Academy of Science and Water Resources Management Agency. This meeting themes activating Albanian potential for shaping water future emphasize the importance of mobilizing scientific knowledge, policy acting, community engagement to address the challenges the water sector is facing in Albania. On behalf of the Water Resources Unit of the Academy of Science and AMBU, I am pleased to reach warm welcome to our distinguished guests, academicians, professors, colleagues, friends, and water professionals for joining us in this event. To officially open this event, it's my honor to invite our first speaker for her welcome remarks, the Scientific Secretary of the Albanian Academy of Science, Professor Anila Hoda. The floor is yours, Anila.
Thank you, Valbona. The distinguished representative of academic and scientific institutions, esteemed representatives of governmental and international organizations, dear colleagues and participants. It is a great pleasure, and of course, I am felt honored to welcome you today in the Academy of Science of Albania in this important scientific workshop in the framework of World Day of Water 2025. Water is not merely a natural resource, but it is the essence of life, a fundamental element for economic development, social stability, and environmental balance. However, the challenges that are posed by climate change, pollution, and unsustainable water use make the implementation of effective and sustainable water management strategies an urgent necessity. In this context, the new water law in Albania represents a scientific step toward harmonization with the EU Water Framework Directive. However, no law, regardless of its quality, can drive real change without its effective implementation, which requires continuous commitment from scientific institutions, policymakers, experts, and the broader community. The Academy of Science of Albania is already well known. That is the highest scientific institution in the country that is dedicated to the advancement of research, innovation, knowledge dissemination across various scientific disciplines. Its mission is to promote excellence in research, foster interdisciplinary collaboration, and provide scientific expertise to support national development policies. So, and I think that it is a good case and it's a great example, the Water Resources Unit that is composed not only by academicians, but also by distinguished researchers from different higher education institutions in the country, and also from esteemed researcher from our diaspora, if I can say it. In alignment with the global and European research trends, Academy of Science has established specialized research units and centers, as I mentioned, and this unit serves as platform for scientific exploration and innovation, addressing critical challenges in environmental sustainability, technological advancement, and resource management. Through these initiatives, Academy of Science aims to bridge the gap between science and policy, ensuring that scientific research actively contributes to the socio-economic progress and environmental protection. The Academy of Science of Albania, through the Water Resource Research Units, remains committed to advancing scientific research on water resources, developing sustainable policies and strategies for water management, supporting young researchers to contribute to water sector, strengthening cooperation with national and international institutions. A concrete example is also the institution and scientific collaboration agreement that was signed not longer than 2 days ago with the head of the unit of the Agency for Water Resources Management. And this strategic agreement that was signed between Academy of Science and the agency aims to utilize scientific expertise to support water resource management, to integrate Academy of Science research units into national and international projects, to engage academy experts in geoengineering, geosciences, and water resources management, to develop as well evidence-based policies for water sector. This collaboration clearly demonstrates the need for stronger synergies between science and policy making, reinforcing connection between researcher, institutions, and decision makers' bodies. But also, Academy of Science is highly engaged in the promotion of the young scientists. And a good example is the establishment of the Academy of Youth, which is a structure, let's say, a part of Academy of Science that is composed by young researchers coming from different research institutions and from higher education institutions in the country. So this academic structure aims to promote the professional development of young researchers, to engage them in impactful national and international research projects, to strengthen their connection with global scientific network, to support scientific publication and foster high-quality research. The contribution of young scientists extends beyond deepening existing knowledge. It also brings new and innovative perspectives, which are essential for scientific and social advancement. Today, we have a valuable opportunity to exchange ideas, share experiences, and strengthen collaboration between science and policy, ensuring a more sustainable future for water resources. Finally, I would like to thank the organizers, the speakers who are going to give their talks in a few minutes later, and all participants for their engagement and contributions. Meaningful changes require collective efforts, and this workshop is a concrete step toward the development of effective and sustainable strategies in the water sector. Let us join forces to protect, develop, and manage our water resources in a sustainable and responsible manner. Thank you, and I wish you a successful workshop. Thank you.
I wish to welcome all the speakers of the opening session to take the seats here in front of you. And I am very pleased to introduce the next speaker, Ms. Anila Shehu, General Director of the Water Resources Management Agency. The agency engaged on designing and implementing the water policy. Please.
Thank you very much. Honorable representative of EU delegation, dear Mr. Blenglov, and the Austrian Development Agency, Mr. Mugenhaber, dear colleagues and collaborators. On behalf of the National Water Resource Management Agency, the institution that I have had the honor of leading for the past few months, it is a pleasure to hold this event together today in the framework of World Water Day. This is a moment for reflection and commitment to the sustainable management of water resources in Albania. This event provides an opportunity to share experience and address common challenges and fulfilling our commitment to implementing the EU water directives. The new law on water resources is an important step on this direction, aiming to establish a stronger foundation for the protection and management of water resources. At the same time, it is assigns many new functions for the agency. In this context, I would like to emphasize the importance of institutional cooperation and the role of scientific research on decision-making and policy development for water resources. Our cooperation agreement with the Academy of Sciences, signed 2 days ago, clearly demonstrates our commitment to developing activities of mutual interest in the field of research. I'm also pleased that today we are giving a special attention to the involvement of young professionals. Through the Excellence Program, the agency has provided employment opportunities for many young experts, most of whom, after a year of experience, have been recruited full-time, and the future of the water sector depends on their preparations, dedications, and innovations. My sincere thanks to the Academy for hosting us, the EU for Rivers project team, and the Boku University for their continued supports, and I wish you a day of full discussions and successful collaborations.
Thank you very much, Ms. Reu. Our next speaker is Mr. Jean-Noël Gengo, the Program Officer for Water, Circular Economy and Civil Protection of EU Delegation to Albania. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Professor Roja and member of the Academia, thanks a lot for hosting us for this important event. Dear Anila, dear David, dear participant, as you all know, EU accession negotiations with Albania are now proceeding at full speed with the intention of opening all remaining chapters in 2025 and closing them by 2027, which indeed is an ambitious target. Albania has prepared its negotiation position for Cluster 4, which do include Chapter 27, Environment and Climate Change. These positions are currently under revision. As more specifically for Chapter 27, subchapter on water quality, and as stated in the Albania report 2024, the country made a substantial progress in aligning its water policies and legislation with the EU acquis, with 2 key laws. Professor Roja and Anila mentioned, of course, the key law on water resources. There is another important one in the sector, which is the law on protection of marine environment. Those 2 laws were adopted, further advancing the regulatory framework. However, there is still a lot to do with bylaws to be prepared. Actually, it's, I think, for the sector, a dozen of DCMs and directive-specific implementation plans. They are still to be developed. Some of them are already being developed. All this is needed to ensure the comprehensive transposition of the EU Water Directive. As highlighted in the EU report on Albania, Albania must increase financial resources and institutional capacity for water governance. And the adoption of and completion of a river basin management plan is a critical step forward. Albania must also learn from the past. Institutional fragmentation has historically hindered progress. So the new law on water resources is an opportunity to reset and strengthen governance, ensuring implementation follows best practices. Effective EU acquis implementation requires interinstitutional cooperation between all national institutions, academia, and civil society, as correctly mentioned by the previous speakers. The scientific community must be actively engaged in shaping and supporting policies. Now, more specifically on strengthening Albania water monitoring system and building a foundation for effective decision-making. The project EU4River intends to serve as a catalytic project. The project's success will depend on institutional commitment, data sharing, and a modernized water information system. This requires a dedicated budget for long-term water monitoring, and actually it's a precondition to the financing decision of the EU and the contribution agreements that we have signed with our partner, Austrian Development Agency. It requires also recruitment and capacity building to ensure compliance with EU monitoring requirements, and of course, strengthen interagency collaboration to unify efforts. Monitoring is actually the backbone of sustainable water management. Albania's ability to assess water status and implement measures for protection and restoration depends on robust monitoring systems. As already mentioned, stakeholder engagement is crucial, and joint effort is needed. Scientists, policymakers, and practitioners must work together to ensure effective monitoring and decision-making at the river basin level. Albania must also invest in the future. Young professionals have a key role to play. It's time to empower the next generation. Water governance needs specialized professionals. The scientific and academic community has a crucial role in training and guiding young experts to become leaders in the water sector transformation. Bridging science and policy is essential. Young professionals should be encouraged to engage in policy making, data analysis, and decision-making to ensure evidence-based strategies for Albania's water future. To summarize, I would like to call to action. As already said, policymakers, researchers, and young professionals must align efforts for an integrated, sustainable approach to water resource management and collaborate for a resilient water sector. And everyone must commit to implementing the law on water resources. The new legal framework must translate into action, ensuring Albania's water governance meets EU standards. Let this World Water Day be a catalyst for stronger collaboration and tangible action on sustainable water management. Thank you.
Closing our welcome remarks, I am pleased to introduce Mr. David Mückenhuber, Head of Regional Coordination Office for Technical Cooperation of the Austrian Embassy in Tirana. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear partners, participants, dear colleagues from Albania and from Austria. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here today at the Albanian Academy of Science to gather for this important workshop, which is organized by AMBU and the Academy with the support of the EU4River project. One really doesn't need to be an expert to sense the impact of climate change I was just in Vienna a couple of days ago, and I was shocked by the extreme drought which I've sensed there. The winter was almost without snow. There was no precipitation. And we can also feel the same here in Albania and also in the region. The lack of melting water leading to empty lakes, empty rivers. This is something we cannot ignore and not deny, unfortunately. Water indeed is more than just a resource. It is the lifeblood of our communities, of the ecosystems, and also of the economies. As we are approaching the World Water Day 2025, we are reminded of the urgent need for sustainable water management, both globally and locally. The Austrian Development Agency, in partnership with the EU, has long supported Albania's water sector, starting with the EU SWIM project before, now through the EU for Rivers project, and also complementary projects with the Akademia partnerships and civil society engagement. Our shared goal is clear, I would say. We want to strengthen the institutional capacities, we want to foster scientific collaboration, and we want to adopt integrated approaches to safeguard our shared natural resources. This workshop provides a vital platform for an open dialogue and for knowledge exchange. We are fortunate to have with us today many young and esteemed scientists who dedicate their work to water management. And the science community's contribution indeed is crucial. Evidence-based research must inform policymaking. It ensures that reforms are both effective and sustainable. And I like that quote by my dear colleague. That's why I want to emphasize it. The bridge between science and policy is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Thank you for that great suggestion. We also must recognize the importance of empowering the next generation of water specialists. The active involvement of young scientists and professionals is key. Their innovative ideas, fresh perspectives, and technical expertise will help Albania align with EU standards and to tackle evolving challenges. Thank you for your passion and dedication. I wish you a productive workshop and inspiring day ahead, and look forward to the discussions. Thank you.
As the president of the Albanian Academy of Science is here, I wish to ask you whether you have to add something. Okay, afterwards. Thank you for your speech. You can take the seat in the hall. Now we move on to the next session, which focuses on global and local challenges in water management. And to start this session, I have the pleasure of introducing the first speaker, Professor Günther Langergraber from Boku University and the President of International Water Association Austria. Additionally, in the absence of Ms. Elisabetta Pocci, Professor Langergraber will give some insights on the activities of the Albanian Association of Water Supply and Sewage and the representatives of the IWA in Albania. The information is provided by Ms. Pocci. The floor is yours, Professor Langergraber.
Good morning also from my side, dear colleagues, dear friends. Yes, it was already mentioned, I come from Boku University in Vienna, and I have the pleasure to lead the team of Boku experts to support the EU for Rivers project. But this is not what I'll tell you about today. I was asked to bring in the international perspective on networking and also especially how young water professionals can participate and what opportunities are there. And one of these organizations, the international network, is the International Water Association. Who has heard about the International Water Association before? A few, yeah, not all. Okay. So the topic was chosen right here to bring this information to you. As a lot of people, I started my activities in this association by participating in an international conference. The first conference I participated that was organized by IWA was in 2001. So already quite some time ago. And I've been active in a number of positions, number of specialist groups, thematic groups, so supporting groups in IWA over the years. So I know a little bit how this is working. So I got these slides from the headquarters of IWA. So I'm also have to look at what's on the slide. So it's not prepared by myself. But let's start. What is one of the main roles of IWA? Of how they see themselves is to bridge the gap between science and practice. So on the one side, you have in IWA quite a lot of scientists as members, but on the other side, you have utilities, you have regulators, you have all kinds of other water professionals. And this has been always seen one of the main pillars of IWA. And IWA would to be known as the main knowledge partner in the field of water technology on a global level. Yes, and of course, this what was already mentioned, climate change, and so to support the sector to cope with the challenges that we are facing on a global level. There are quite a number of members, so you can be, as a person, you can become individual members, there are university members. When the whole university is joining IWA, this is very seldom the case. We, for example, our institute at BOKU is a cooperative member, and then you can nominate some representatives. So I'm one of these 4,000 plus nominated members. So in total, it's a little less than maybe 9,000 people as members in IWA. And IWA is very proud of that the return rate of members is very high. That means they renew their membership in the next year. So this is not the case in a lot of other organizations, but it's about 85% renewal rate. It's pretty high for such a network. Yeah, you see there are a lot of things, what they are doing. So we talked about the members, the different member sectors. It's a global network. They work so IWA works in all the continents. A strong backbone of IWA, I mentioned already, are organizing events, conferences, specialized conferences, but also global conferences. Another backbone is publishing. IWA itself has a publishing company, so where scientific journals are published, and also IWA is representing the water sector on high-level international events on water, like the World Water Forum, Stockholm Water Week, and also UN conferences on water, like it was last year or 2 years ago. So usually when you start, I started as a young postdoc, at the end of my PhD in a special field. So there are specialist groups that work on specific topics in IWA. So it's about 50 different specialist groups. And that's usually how you start within your topic. And then there are also special forums for utilities. I mentioned utilities is also a very big engagement for IWA. There are special forums for regulators in the water field. And you see here that there's some, and one of the specificities is also that decisions in IWA can only be made by governing members, and governing members are countries. So, and it was mentioned, I was elected chair of the Austrian government member, the Austrian National Committee in IWA recently, and I have this pleasure to do also this task. We will come back to the young water professionals. That's a very important thing here. Yeah, here maybe just say something to the young water professionals. IWA recognized about 20 years ago, like a lot of professions, there is a very much need to facilitate the engagement of the young professionals in the association. And they started this Young Water Professionals program. It says here, young water professionals, it's below 35 years. That's always a discussion if it's a strict border or if it's a flexible border, but this is changing sometimes. But it gives a range of, that's usually students and young postdocs or young alumni in different sectors are participating. So once you are very active in the association, you can become fellow. So I was nominated as a fellow 10 years ago in 2014. I'm very happy to have this. It shows that you have been active over a longer period. But that's not so important for here. What you see at the bottom is the IWA has, like other organizations, a strategic plan. And what you see down there are the programs defined in the strategic plan, like digital water and sanitation services on a global level, cities of the future and basins of the future. Yeah, how to engage in IWA? I mentioned as I started as participating in conference, publishing papers in journals. That's usually when you start as young scientists to participate. You participate events, get to know people. So IWA was always a very relevant networking tool for me to get to know a lot of people that you see over the years always again. One finds out that the water sector, also globally, it's quite small. So you see the same people over and over again, and most of them are very friendly, so it makes fun to see them also again. That makes, it's important to have this network. Over time, you get involved more in your field if you're interested then, and then you can take also lead positions. So I was I'm actually still chair of one specialist group on resources-oriented sanitation. I was secretary in another specialist group. I was leading working groups or co-chairing working groups. So different things in this organization over time. And so you get engaged, and I was also elected for one period in the Strategic Council of IWA. That's a member representative that supports the board of directors in strategic decisions. This was also a very interesting experience. So you see, you can do quite a lot of things in the association if you want to do it. So the governance, the IWA has a presidency. The president is now from South Africa, Hamad Kazan. The two vice presidents from Uganda and Malaysia. And then there is the executive director from the headquarters in London office, Kala Vaigalamurthy. And the highest level of decision is the board of directors. And these are 14 persons. And among these 14 persons, there's also a lady from Albania. So I think a lot of you know Elisabetta Bocci from Shukalp. She could not be here because she's on a mission outside of the country. So this is the board of directors is making the decisions on a daily basis. And I mentioned the Strategic Council is supporting the board that's elected on a biannual basis. It's about 40 people there. And then the IWA staff is headed by Carla in the London office. And there are also offices in India and in China at the moment. This changes sometimes from the global perspective. The presidents are elected, the vice presidents are elected by the governing assembly. And as mentioned here, only countries can be members in the governing assembly. There are 60 countries are governing members in IWA. Albania is also a member there. We will come to situation later. Yeah. Yeah, in Albania, that was also provided by the headquarter. So you have Elisabetta Bocci, IWA member, and who is also mentioned here is Alinda Ibrahimi. She was a former young water professional chair on the global level in IWA. So even there are very few members from Albania in IWA. Albania is very well known in IWA because there have been and are some very active women in from Albania in IWA. So there have been some activities in the past. There have been one event some years ago together with Kosovo, the young water professionals, if someone can remember this. So the Young Water Professionals program of IWA was launched, as said, a little less than 20 years ago, with the aim to support the development and the careers of young water professionals in the water sector. And yeah, how are the young water professionals incorporated in the governance of IWA? You have the national level, you have the governing members in, for example, Albanian IWA National Committee, and then you have young water professional chapters in the specific countries, and they are also represented. There's an international committee for young water professionals. But this is mainly a little bit boring, all this stuff. So we go to the next one. The International Steering Committee of the Young Water Professionals, it's quite international. And as you can see here, they are elected every 2 years. And currently, I don't know anyone there anymore. So they just have been elected. These are new faces at the moment. But you see that they just from the faces, they might come from different continents, from different backgrounds. It's always looked at IWA that this topics diversity is taken care of. So these national chapters of IWA, you can find them globally, and you can see there have been some new chapters just last year from South America, in Sudan, in Africa, and also Switzerland has just started a new chapter in Young Water Professional chapter, but you find them globally in a lot of different countries. And I think the slides will be made available afterwards, and you can get a closer look how you can get involved in detail. I mentioned already how I got involved, and I think that's usually the case, how you get involved via some specific topic you are interested in from your work in your education or then in your professional life in a utility. You don't have to be a PhD student to get involved. It just was my way. So specific activities, there is this a specific scholarship that was launched before the last UN Water Conference by IWA and supported by Grundfos. I think that's a company a lot of people know from the pumps. And with the idea to give young professionals the possibility to participate in this UN Water Conference and to bring the voice of the youth also in this high-level forum. And this was the people that the young colleagues selected for this, and they worked on some position papers after the after this UN Water Conference. and presented this in high-level forums, high-level conferences of IWA. So this was very well received, and Grundfos decided to go to a second round. So now the second cohort of people is working on future issues in water. So there are open calls where you can apply to become one of these scholars. This is one activity that's already in the second round, and another activity specifically for young water professional has started recently. It's called the LEAP program, and this started actually last fall, and they had I think it's 12 people that have been selected in this, or 14, I don't know exactly. There's also one former student of mine from Austria was selected in this group, and it's the one here in the yellow shirt. Yeah. So this is also a specific program that was, there is what's called now an endowment fund for emerging water leaders. And this fund will support also over the next years several cohorts of young water professionals in their development with different actions, interactive things. So you see that they met here in Malaysia last fall as a first big initiative. So they're very interesting opportunities, and they are very low level. They're low level to get in, but very hard to get in because there are a lot of applicants. But if you're lucky, you can, I would try it. It's worth to try. Yeah, there are several opportunities, especially for young water professionals, as the headquarter listed here. There are also specific conferences for young water professional on a global level, but also on regional level. You have to look out on the events program of IWA. There is one of the two big conferences that's held biannually is the Water and Development Congress, where the call for contributions is still open. And there will be also an Emerging Water Leaders Forum at this Development Congress. So sometimes, for me, it's not very, very clear when they call it young water professionals and when they call it emerging water leaders. It's the same. It's basically the same. And the upcoming opportunities is also, there will be a second call for this LEAP program, LEAP leadership program that I just mentioned before in this year. So keep your eyes open and take the opportunity, just try it. So what are the benefits to become a member? So this is the official one. There is a membership platform where a lot of content is provided. You can have access to publications easier, or a lot of these are open access currently. But for me, the main benefit from being active in IWA is the network that you create. And it depends on you, on everyone itself, how active you are. If you're open to discuss to people and to engage with them, you create the network that you have for your professional career and maybe even longer. Some of the colleagues can become friends as well. So to get in touch with IWA, it's the ladies responsible for the engagement with members. Daniela is the head of this group. Samuela and Isabella are her staff, and Isabella is specifically responsible for the young water professionals in the team. So if you have specific questions, you can contact her directly also. So the second part of the presentation, it's focusing more on the Albanian side. And these slides were provided by Elisabetta. It's about Shukalp, the Water Supply and Sewerage Association in Albania. I'm sure you know this, and this was established in 2000, and you see the different memberships. It's on the one hand utilities, but also companies, institutions are also member, and also individuals can be member. So the mission is, it's basically also to provide a platform for professionals in the sector in Albania. They also provide courses for development of professionals in the utilities specifically. And they also want to attract the future generations, like everyone nowadays. And they're not only working in Albania, they're reaching out in the neighboring countries in the Western, more or less Western Balkan region. They are running a joint conference, I think an annual event since more than 10 years, mainly in collaboration with Kosovo, I think. And it attracts quite a number of participants. It tells here 500 participants annually. It's a big regional event in this field. You can see some pictures from this Balkan Joint Conference. There's a designated web page also for this. There have been special events organized by Shkencave in the region. A utility management conference some time ago, or twice already, and also the Danube Water Forum it's an annual conference in the Danube region that was organized here in Tirana in 22. Shkencave is also active to promote the water issues with young people, starting in schools from the 3rd grade, 8th grade, 12th grades. I don't know what WWMD is, maybe you know. I didn't get the legend for this. But they also provide an internship program at universities. And Albania is also active promoting this Young Water Professionals program of IWA. So it starts, this is more the age, and then you can when you get more in the profession, you can become active. The Young Water Professionals in Albania have been established already quite some time ago, in 2010. Austria is a very active chapter in the Young Water Professionals and provided over the years quite some support in the region for establishing new chapters, as it was done also with Albania. It's also mentioned here that Arlinda, she was the chair of the Albanian Young Water Professionals, became elected chair of the International Young Water Professionals. And there's a strong collaboration of the young water professionals in the Danube region. This is facilitated by the International Association of Water Utilities in the Danube region, the IAWD, within the framework of the Danube Water Program. So you can also have a website here. Benefits, I think it's specifically for the members of the Albanian Young Water Professional chapter. There's the Shkencave annual conference. There's the Balkans Joint Conferences, the regional and local conferences. If you're a member of Young Water Professionals, you get a lower fee to participate. And you can also become active in the field. Shkencave has specific working groups, which I'm not aware in detail. And of course, also this is a big networking possibility on the national level, then on the regional level. And if you decide to, also you can do it on the European and global level. And maybe the last is interesting. Shkencave also provides support for young people to attend international conferences. I read it like this. How it works, you have to ask Shkencave. Shkencave is mentioned already, not only active in Albania, they have the international network. There's also European Water Association, the International Water Association, what I have been talking about. And there are some other, this is in the Danube region. This, I don't know this one, the Association Boards of Certification, but they're also active in this activity there. So thanks for your attention. I don't know if it's
Thank you.
time for questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes dedicated for questions and comments. So if there are any questions from the audience, feel free and raise the hand, and we provide a microphone.
Everything clear.
If not, thank you, Professor Langergraber, for the very insightful presentation on the IWA and activities and the opportunities it provides. Our next presentation will be held by Professor Spase Shumka, Agricultural University of Tirana. He will present evidences of climate changes and conservation needs for small glacial lake in Albania. The floor is yours, Professor Shumka. Here is the pointer.
Good morning also from my side. Actually, I'm working at the Agricultural University Tirana and I'm freshwater ecologist. Later on, I will tell you about my tie with, and my team tie with the glacial lakes. Actually, beside the size they have in Albania, but also in the Southeastern Europe, glacial lakes play a very important role in understanding climate change, and also in the role they play in different sides of economy, but also in the nature. The purpose of this presentation actually is to give an overview of the current state of glacial lakes in Albania. Secondly, to underline the different climate change phenomena that are linked with temperature, with snow cover, with cumulative minimum below zero temperature in the recent years, also with the biodiversity richness. Okay, to that fact, I will go through briefly through the different patterns actually of Albanian glacial lake with the rest of the world glacial lakes in the recent years. Also glacial lakes values in Albania, the reasons of we dedicate this work, the recent influence of climate change, and also I will come at the end of some conclusions and work forward, which is connected also with the people working with the water agency, because these ecosystems, they have been left out of any attention. Just to tell the fact that when we talk for the glacial lakes, actually in the recent years, we have different developments of Albanian glacial lakes comparing with the rest of world glacial lakes. Why this has happened? Because there are some regional elements with the glacial lakes in Southeast Europe, also in Albania, where in the world, for example, recently, due to the satellite images, the number of glacial lakes in Scandinavia, in Iceland, in Russia have been enormously increased. And we know everybody why, because of climate change and retreat of the glaciers. There is a significant reduction of retention times with Albanian lakes because of I will explain a little bit later, but the oscillation between maximum water level and minimum water level is going year by year to be accelerated. Also, we have a change in biotic components, and there is a linkage we have been working for a couple of years. And also, we have a case when we have a complete disappearance of the lake. So everybody of us knows, people working up and down, and in Albania, they saw that the glacial lakes are component in our landscape, and they play a vital role for tourism development. Secondly, they still, beside the size, they have very limited, less than 2 hectares. They play very important role in hydrological buffering. They are also very important in terms of biodiversity, and we know very, very little about that. They also serve as a nature component for understanding post-glacial period. And also they're an indicator of climate change. We already have very clear evidence for that. But also they can test our society in order to build resilience and to save these ecosystems from disappearance and from different elements. So in different publications, you can find different figures about the glacial lakes. So we have prepared this graph. You can see the number of glacial lakes that we actually recorded through the satellite images is 84. In other publications, you can see 126, but most of them are not existing actually. And the surface they have is about 2.1 square kilometer. Actually, the number of the lake always is, you can never say what is the number, because as I said before, in different countries, the number is changing year after year. But in our case, actually, we have at least during the recent years, this number. Where are located our lakes? Theoretically, I don't like to bother you, but our lakes have been created during the Pleistocene. That means in the period which is spanning from 2.83 million years ago up to 11,700 years ago. And the chains of Albanian lakes have been happened during the Holocene, which is in between 11,700 until actually the Little Age. So they are concentrated in different areas of Albania. The most interesting are the topmost Albanian Alps. We have a number of like 16 lakes, and we have been focused very much on them. We visited all of them mostly, and we have records also exchanged with some experts from Netherlands, from Manchester University, and also from Bulgaria. But we have also in the lower part. So the particularity of our lakes is the fact that theoretically they are below the limits of scientists working with glaciology, because they say the limit is 3,000 meters to 4,000 meters, but in Southeastern Europe, we have like 500 to 700 meters below. There is a reason for that. There are local or regional component like exposition, which is to the northeast. Also the influence of continental climate, which is in this area, but also we have some specific particularities connected also with the history of glaciation and post-glaciation period, as I explained it before, expanding to entire Quaternary period and two geological epochs of Pleistocene and Holocene. So most of them are actually facing different type of degradation. We have some of them like this one in the corner, which is actually in the summertime almost disappearing, Dragani Lake, which is in Šebenika Planica National Park. And you can see actually evolution of the lake because Molesine type of sediments actually, which is coming, moraine sediments type, which is coming from glaciers, is very visible. Well, some of them are reachable, but most of them actually you have to walk. Probably you know, I don't like to talk more. Where is our tie with these lakes? Actually, we had a small project which was started some 12 years ago with Croatian Academy of Science. Actually, we worked with for the biodiversity of glacial lakes. And we found quite interesting things regarding the tiny living species that are rotifers. And then after that, we become more interested of that, and we dedicated quite more work on this side. Actually, the change was starting during the Little Age. You can see here in the year 1600s, when the lower temperature actually was starting to be increased on this area. So from the graph, which is actually I took this one from publication of Mann, and Little Age actually is changing completely actually the drama with these lakes, which is actually reflected still in recent years in more accelerated way. So the first element which is influencing the current state of our lakes is the temperature. So if you see the temperature in some urban areas, like in Bayramtsuri, you can see the average temperature is going to rise, particularly after the year 79, 81. you can see the average temperature is increased quite significantly. So you can have snow, you can have like 2 meters of water, but at the end you can have less water in water body. We have this one also in other natural lakes, like in Prespa or in other ecosystems that are facing a really dramatic situation. This is very interesting, actually. So if you analyze this one, which is connected to the temperatures below zero, days with temperature below zero, and we analyze it actually different areas, and very interesting is Shistaveci, also Dragobia, Tropoia, where are located the most interesting lakes. So we have a tendency of decreasing this number. And actually, this is one of the second factor which is influencing very much. The third one is coming from the study which is very recently published. And you can see actually in a sequences here, what is the amount of glacial which is remaining with this area, which is feeding these lakes? Because actually our lakes are completely different from our lakes. We have erosion lakes, mostly circular lakes. So when the glacials close to them are disappearing, then there is no feeding for the lakes. So there is a kind of the history of satellite images, and they actually monitored snow patches, and snow patches are less and less on these areas. This is also quite interesting argument. The snow patches, the snow rate of precipitation in Albanian Alps almost is going to the different patterns. So you can see actually on the left side, we have a kind of, in the year 2013, 2014, during the winter time, we have 135 millimeters average snow. We call this one as the recharging period. But after this recharging period, we have a long period with a disappearing or with a discharge. The same is actually, you can see on the other side what is the difference in between previous year and the next year. So if you see, we have at the end minus 100 centimeter, but we don't have data for the very last years, but definitely this year is the worst one. If you go in Albanian Alps, very few snow is, which is unusual period. So definitely we expect more dramatic period. Actually, this is the reason why we started to be interested on glacial lakes. We worked on 25 different lakes, and we actually described some 20 new species for Albanian fauna, and they are tiny living organisms, very little known, but they play a very important role. So if you see the gradient, the work was to see how the species diversity is changing with the gradient altitude of the diversity. So we found out that this is not any discovery, it is expected, but what was not expected was number of species and type of species that are actually indicator of biodiversity degradation, of the ecosystem degradation. So we have this one describing very much, particularly in the lakes that are situated in the 1,600, 1,900 meters. What is the most interesting actually are representing the lakes of Jezerca. We have 5 different lakes there, and they, you know, Jezerca reaches almost 2,694 meters, which is actually even in that ridge, which is the lakes have exposition completely on the northeast, and they also are facing a really dramatic situation. In statistical analysis, we found out there is a kind of a correlation. When we have a very good vegetation surrounding the lake, then the water oscillation is lower than in the other case. We found this one in Lura lakes. So in a couple of Lura lakes, when the vegetation was disappearing or were human-induced damage, then we have a kind of the oscillation very higher comparing with the other lakes. Also, we found we analyzed the number of species with altitude on the vegetation, and we found the number of species for invertebrates is reducing, but vegetation is playing a crucial role actually in the increasing resilience of the water quantity within these ecosystems. Our lakes are facing also still banal interventions. Besides that, all of them are monument of nature. It's third category according to IUCN, but we have interventions. We have we have intervention for hydropowers, and you can imagine because they are damaging a lake, which is a nature monument, is third category, but quantity of energy they generate is almost less than 0.5 mega, which is nothing. Yeah, this is one of the Valamara Lake. Well, we also have been dedicating attentions to see how the the management plan of the protected areas, because almost all the glacial lakes in Albania are situated in the protected areas. But when we analyze different components, like projects dedicated to the glacial lakes, like participation in education, EU integration in the field of aquatic nature conservation and different components, you can see the dedication is almost nothing. And we also look at on 3 management plans in Albanian Alps, in Korab Koritnik, and also in Šebenik Jablanica National Park. And you can see not only project dedication to the glacial lakes, but also scientific publications are almost nothing, or we have very limited number, which is actually delivered by colleagues from different countries. And this is actually directly telling the interest of the country in dedication as well. So if you have some conclusions actually driven by that, we see the glacial lakes are on the verge of existence. Also, in the recent years, specific cycle of interlinear behavior actually have different patterns. So we have a recharging period, but then discharge period is following a couple of years. There is a significant decrease of temperature below zero, actually the cumulative value, I have to say. Also, at the present, the glacial lake studied, there is existence in unbalanced condition, which is in terms of that is leading actually to their degradation, but it's a multi-factor that are influencing to that. And there is a progressive warming, which is making actually vulnerability and a trend which is actually without end. We actually at least we have to do something. Beside the climate change, actually, we cannot give up. We have to do something. And what we can do actually is exactly to stop intervention and further deterioration of these ecosystems. Secondly, we have to consider this tiny ecosystem in the wider area, so vegetation recovery should take. It's the only way we can actually increase water resilience, because they will lose this water if we are not intervening. We have to have innovative approach actually to base our intervention on the science. We also have to consider conservation within national plan actually as a priority number 1, because when they do operational plans, they do also priorities, but never they give priority 1 to these ecosystems. And beside that, they use very much for tourism development. If you go to every lake, just be sure, we visited most of them. Everywhere you can find tourists, mostly foreigners, but also recently Albanians. We have to incorporate also in the national monitoring system and water framework directive commitments. Actually, this is a lacking element, not only in Albania, but also in European countries, in Italy. They take very little attention to them, but recently they are actually dedicating much more, because it's not a phenomenon of Albania. I said we have a completely different patterns with our trends. In some countries, like I am not talking for Himalayas, also for the Alaska or for Canada, when the hazard is increased very much. So energy infrastructure with production and transmission. Secondly, highways and top hill settlements already started to be damaged. So because the water is melting, the ice is melting, and then glacial lakes are increasing, and it is overpassing to that. Yeah, this is very nice lake actually in the Njësia.
Thank you, Professor, for the very nice presentation. I am glad to hear that at least there are some hope to reverse at least some of the damages already done. Some questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the presentation. I would like to ask you, did you note some salinity changes in the lakes?
Actually, we measured conductivity,
Yes.
pH, also oxygen content and some nutrients, but not all of the lake. So in order to say change, you have to have a starting point. We have data for that, but with what we can compare. So we don't know how it was like 10 years ago.
Any invasive species?
In rotifers, we have one species which is invasive. If you know Leptodora kilti, which is a parrot actually in Greece, you have it in Greece everywhere. So we found it in 2 lakes. Yeah. Well, with Albanian lakes is something else. Drama is a little bit bigger because we have a lake where the fish introduction was happening. alien species, like we have this grass carp, Prussian carp, and also big head carp. And they've been growing in grams, for example, like 30 kilos. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now we will take a short break